On the night of January 19th, Company L's front was attacked by strong enemy forces. Among our casualties were many wounded, dead, and captured. The German attack encircled the apple orchard and those within it. At dawn, it was always our habit to inspect the trenches on both sides to make sure everything was in order. We noticed that the adjacent trenches were far too empty. We realized that our positions had been overrun and that, as a group of 26 men, we could not communicate with friendly forces. The only food, water, and ammunition available were what we had brought to this position together the night before. Daily replenishment of these basic necessities was standard practice, but we understood that the likelihood of this happening was low. We first looked for a way out. Lieutenant Travers agreed to take Sergeant Ed Casey and Private T.R. Wilson with him to reconnoiter the German positions between our location and the nearest friendly forces. They somehow managed to cross the German lines. They thought it would be futile to return to us and attempt to rescue. Instead, they requested help to rescue the 23 men remaining in the apple orchard. We did not know it at the time, but the response to their request was that our entire regiment was under constant and intense attack and that there was no personnel available to participate in a rescue operation. As time passed, those of us remaining in the apple orchard could only speculate about the situation of the 3 men who had left us, but we concluded that their chances of obtaining help were very slim. Unknown to us, Lieutenant Travers had reported our situation with the estimate that it was extremely unlikely we could hold out for more than a few hours. The group was presumed to have been either captured or destroyed. We were erased from military situation maps as missing and declared missing in action. Escape was not a viable option. As required by military procedure, on February 5, 1944, a telegram was sent from the War Department to my parents. The Secretary of War asked me to express his deep regret that your son, Private Clayton R. Byrd, has been missing in Germany since January 20th. The telegram in question read, "You will be promptly notified when further information is received. J. A. Julio, the Adjutant General." We knew that all avenues of escape were completely closed. This forced us to confront the question of whether to surrender or to resist. Our group came together on this matter. This was a situation where no ranking officer was giving orders. Each of us participated equally in this discussion. In the end, we all felt that our position was indefensible and that survival in combat was impossible. We therefore concluded that surrender was the most reasonable and honorable option. However, when we arrived at our positions, we saw the bodies of several American soldiers tied to tree trunks, used for target practice. Although some German units would not have resorted to such conduct, we now had to face this reality. We concluded that if we surrendered, we would share the same fate. Under these circumstances, we believed we had no chance of survival regardless. We therefore decided to defend our positions to the last, and in the process, to take as many Germans with us as possible. Strangely, as this decision was being made, there was a strong sense of resolve and peace within our group. Due to our limited ammunition, we decided to fire only when we had specific, suitable targets. Since Lieutenant Travers had not returned, our group went out several times during the night to try to find a way out. Taking great personal risk, while the group waited, Johnny Dresser and Jim Menezes went out to reconnoiter whether there was a route that could offer us passage. But these efforts yielded no results. In each case, we reluctantly returned to the safety of our trenches. Initially, it appeared that the Germans were unaware that our group of 23 was occupying this apple orchard, which was now behind their lines. This would soon change. The following morning, probably, the situation changed when a German military unit moved with strict discipline through the valley I mentioned earlier. I cannot imagine that such a military unit could march like that near a combat zone, but they did. When they came within effective range, we opened fire, and that unit was largely destroyed. Very few survived. German medics arrived at the scene shortly afterward and tended to the survivors. We allowed the medics to care for the wounded. But the enemy's awareness of our position was now unmistakable. Early every morning, the distant sound of German tanks surrounded the area, and every time we heard them we lived with the fear that we could become a target. Aside from the company sergeant's .45 caliber Thompson submachine gun, we only had .30 caliber weapons. These weapons would have been ineffective against tanks. Fortunately, enemy tanks did not block our path. After we made our presence known, the Germans began sporadically shelling our orchard with mortars. In my view, a direct hit on one of our trenches would have been needed to cause real damage. But this did not happen. One shell exploded right next to the trench I was in. It destroyed some of the items we had placed around the trench and blasted black smoke over us, but we were unharmed. With a few inches of snow around, obtaining drinking water seemed of little concern. The only way to melt snow was with body heat. Melting snow with body heat and below zero temperatures would have been ineffective. We would press a canteen cup full of snow against our bodies to try to melt it, but in doing so we would get far too cold, and the amount of water obtained would be negligible. During the day we did not dare raise our heads above the edge of our trenches when we might be seen. Moving between our trenches at night was dangerous. Going down to the valley to get water was even more risky, but we took that risk. On the night of January 23rd, John Dresser, Charlie Wilcox, Al Waxer, and Earl Freeman volunteered to gather as many canteens as they could carry and go down to the stream to get water. John Dresser reported that an explosion occurred just as he and Earl Freeman were bent down side by side filling the canteens. The explosion blew both of them into the air and caused Earl Freeman to die instantly from a wound to his chest. The group returned with the canteens and reported Earl's death. An additional note regarding this event: Earl's son Lynn Freeman was just a baby when his father died, and in 1998 at our Company L reunion, he was with us to learn the circumstances of his father's death. I believe that as he learned some of these facts, conveying to Lynn the respect we held for Earl would help him understand his father more clearly and more fully. Also, for those of us present at the reunion, it was very heartening to learn that Lynn's mother, now deceased, had set aside the $10,000 insurance money to be paid upon Earl's death to finance Lynn's college education. Lynn was the first person in his family to graduate from college. On one occasion, our lookout, while watching the forest, noticed several German soldiers crawling toward us along the fence on the right side. The intention of these soldiers was to better observe our position. The leaves on the fence were too sparse to provide the protective cover they needed. Carefully, we assigned one marksman for each of these Germans and fired simultaneously on the command of "Ready, aim, fire." I was using a Browning automatic rifle, and swept the area with automatic fire. We observed no further movement from that area. At the same time, other incidents occurred that led to direct confrontations with the Germans. Initially, I believe the Germans wandered into our area unaware of our presence. This proved fatal for them. We took some German bread from their packs. It was not as good as our own bread, but we were not very selective at that point. I also acquired a P-38 pistol from one of them. It was later stolen from me. There were two planned attacks against our positions. One day, a numerically superior German unit emerged from the forest about 500 meters away and advanced toward us across a flat, snow-covered field. We held our fire until they came within a distance where safer targets could be obtained, less than 200 meters. This was disastrous for them. Tactically, a second attack made much more sense. It appeared they would follow the same route as the previous attack, but under the cover of darkness. When they reached our positions, they would fire a flare so that they could see us and take aim. Such a plan should have worked, but they lit the flare too early. They were still some distance from us but within our range. They made themselves into large targets. Again, this was devastating for them. A week later, looking in the direction of friendly forces, we spotted an American soldier on a distant hill, and then more came. We felt relief, joy, and fear all at once. The Germans had withdrawn, but the really critical question was, how would we make contact with these American soldiers and prove to them that we were not the enemy? We probably did not take the most prudent approach. In our excitement, we waved in every way we could to attract their attention. They surely knew that Germans would not make such a gesture. We succeeded. After days of hunger, exhausted as we were, we waded through knee-deep snow and met those who would rescue us. We left behind an apple orchard that showed the horror we had lived through, or its aftermath. We left behind many German bodies and one of our own. When we had made the decision to continue defending our positions, we had also aimed to take as many Germans with us as possible in the process. Each of us would be awarded the Silver Star for our efforts. Among military medals, it ranks just below the Congressional Medal of Honor and the Distinguished Service Cross. Alongside the loss of Earl, many of us would suffer various cases of frostbite, including the loss of toes. On the other hand, many of us would decide to stay on to continue fighting against the Germans. 7 days earlier, Captain Smith had estimated that his company would hold its position for approximately 7 days. Though the rest of Company L now consisted of only 14 men, those of us who had remained in the orchard for a week fulfilled his prediction. We had grown as soldiers. When we returned to friendly forces, the War Department sent my parents the following telegram on February 11, 1944. It is a pleasure to inform you that your son, Private Clayton R. Byrd, returned to duty on January 26th. L. J. A. Julio, the Adjutant General. If this story made you feel something, if you believe that history is written not only by generals, but also by stubborn people with dirty hands, do something simple but important: press the like button. Pressing the like button is the right way to say, these stories are important. Help us find forgotten geniuses, heroes in the shadows. Don't forget to subscribe. We are looking for brave people who change history with absolute determination, not just high-ranking soldiers or those who follow orders. We await your comments. Is anything impossible? We want to know and read the stories you will tell. Thank you for watching. Because we don't just tell stories. We call back those who are left behind.